Welcome to Soundcheck, the podcast for and about local struggling artists. This week's guest is James Russell, or as he's otherwise known, Astrophysical Mazer, and he is an electronic music producer and audio-visual artist. James is really interested in exploring VR and how that can influence existing mediums like film and gaming. I can be the first to admit that I was a little awkward in today's episode. James was the first person on the podcast that I haven't met beforehand, and I'm so incredibly grateful that he reached out to have an open and expressive conversation. Thanks for coming on, James. I loved learning about your art making process and practice and really learnt a lot of new things about an area that fascinates me. Thanks for being so patient. Enjoy the episode. Awesome. Well, I'll ask you to set the scene for us first. It's what I ask all of my guests to do, so more or less just provide context for where we are and what's going on.
We're in a radio studio, not using the radio mics, but using the little...
That's right.
Mic.
We're using the Zoom instead of... Actually, I actually don't even know how to use all of the audio equipment.
True. I could probably get it going, but...
It seems like a lot of effort for... It does the same job.
True.
So, James, you are the first guest on my podcast that I haven't met previously. So thanks for coming on.
That's all right.
First of all, I'll just get you to introduce yourself and tell me a bit about your practice.
My name is James Russell. I've been producing electronic music for about 10 years now. I use the alias Astrophysical Mazer. I've had some releases had a release on a Sydney techno label, Meteoric Records, last year, which was pretty well received by other producers. I haven't really broken any sort of big ground yet, but I really like the music I write and I'm proud of the stuff I make. So I also make visual art as well, like
cool.
videos, mostly videos with that for the large part go along with my tracks.
Yep.
Yeah, that's basically what
That's
I do.
it. Yeah, I've definitely checked out the Instagram and it seems very cool.
Nice.
Experimental, a bit astrophysical, I dig it. And you've been studying at UAW, or you had been studying at UAW for a while? Or?
Yeah, since 2013. I graduated last year.
And what did you study?
I did a Bachelor of Arts with a major in history.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very
It's pretty random.
off-brand, hey?
Yeah.
And how did you find that?
It was good. I wasn't really interested in history for the first year, but then I started listening to a history podcast, which was sort of told in a storytelling fashion, which is what history actually is. It's just a story, but it's also the most interesting story to ever happen in the universe, more or less.
Yeah.
It's literally the true story.
Yeah.
So that's what, I really just like history. I think it's absolutely fascinating and it's really valuable, and it really is an important thing for people living in these crazy times now to have context to their existence.
Yeah.
We're living in pretty wacky times.
For sure. Definitely agree. And doing an arts degree, because I do a creative arts degree, which is similar but very different at the same time. Do you think UAW has supported the arts in general, or...
The creative arts?
Or just the arts? It's more applicable to your circumstance because you studied a Bachelor of Arts. So...
I think so. I think they're doing mostly pretty good stuff. I actually finished my degree doing a painting workshop over the summer session.
Yeah.
Where what I did was basically have access to infinite canvases and free materials. So that was a really cool way to finish off my arts degree, with basically just a do whatever you want painting workshop.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I wish I could do that again. But in terms of supporting of the arts, I think they've done pretty well. I mean, they have a whole building for creative arts. They could probably upgrade building 19 a little bit, but is what it is.
Yeah.
Teaching in general, education's just kind of wacky how it is nowadays, but I think a lot of it could be done better, but
Yeah, well,
for what it is.
especially this year, I've found that with all of the budget cuts, I can tell the staff have seemed very resistant and hesitant in their approach to their teaching as opposed to when I started uni 4 years ago. So it's interesting because although creative arts, this building that we're sitting in now is dedicated to the creative arts students, it also has journalism students and all of the writing, Bachelor of Communications and Media, which is also my second degree. So it's interesting, hey?
Yeah.
But do you feel that your degree has led you to go out into the workforce and find a stable job or...
No.
No?
Definitely not. No. I think university degrees, like I've been working in audiovisual technician work, which is completely unrelated to a Bachelor of Arts, but the stuff I do, AV tech work, is like setting up speakers and lights and stuff for concerts, basically. Lots of packing trucks and unpacking trucks, which was like a funny sort of thing to go into after like completing a university degree. It's like I did a university degree, got a huge HECS debt. Now I'm basically a labourer. Like it's...
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm not complaining. It's kind of interesting work. So I think I do think university degrees are largely unnecessary nowadays. I think people, especially in high school, should be taught how to make money first and foremost, because we live in a capitalist structure for now. And it might not be ideal, but like if you want to survive and change that, you have to work within it to then reap the benefits and hopefully make a better life for yourself and the people around you.
Yeah. I feel like, especially in today's day and age, a lot of university courses are definitely oversubscribed with people that just are going along for the ride because they were told to go into university after high school, which I guess I kind of fall into that category because I came to university straight after graduating. But yeah, I feel that a lot of people are here for the wrong reasons or don't really have realistic expectations as to what it's going to be like finding a job.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people just don't want to get jobs, which, like, fair enough, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's better things in life than jobs.
Yeah.
And the idea that, like, a lot of university... I mean, I'm a full example of this. I just didn't want to get a job, so I went to university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But then you get a job out of university eventually, but, you know... You then have a huge HECS debt, which is basically like a chain on your ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're basically dragging one of those old-timey
ball and chains. Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned before about the audiovisual kind of art you make. And what kind of art do you want to make in the future?
Well, it's really interesting because the future is like pretty unpredictable at this stage. I think virtual reality is going to be really big. I think virtual reality will take over gaming and movies. I think movies will be transformed into sort of first-person experiences where you're like Luke Skywalker or whoever. Like it'll be much more personalized, and it'll probably blend with gaming so that the experience is like interactable, probably right down to the point of like being able to speak in the simulation.
Yep.
So I want to kind of get into that kind of field, into virtual reality and like that kind of work. But like it's like I think about the future heaps, but it's so like up in the air which way it's going to go.
Yep.
So I'm trying to just sort of like make heaps of visual art, so then I have that experience to go off into whatever comes next.
Yeah, and they're already starting to do similar things where they include interactivity within films, like especially Netflix. Netflix have been pushing that lately. I've seen Bear Grylls did a special, an interactive special, which was kind of interesting.
It didn't work on my computer, unfortunately. But,
I PlayStation. That's
True.
the controller. I think, but again with like Bandersnatch and things coming out like that, but it's definitely exciting and terrain that hasn't been explored and is really different. And yeah, when you came into uni, did you have expectations coming in that changed or were radically different as opposed to when you graduated?
I didn't really know what I was doing when I first came into university. I don't really know what I'm doing now, but like
Neither, man.
nobody really does.
No.
But I don't really even remember what my expectations from uni were, but I remember my main priority was like I just didn't really want to work too much.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just wanted to like sort of put off that and then smoke heaps of billies and do whatever I wanted for a few more years.
Yeah.
More or less, basically, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Like, that's similar to how I'm going through uni now. So what's been your favourite project you've created thus far? It can be anything.
In terms of like creative arts?
Yeah.
I really like a AV piece I did for, it's called Thought Chamber. It was, created it after a flotation isolation chamber place offered me some free spots to then create a piece based on those experiences. So I did like 2 hour-long isolation chamber sessions and then sort of created this like full, like the most next level AV work I've made still to this day. That's probably my favourite thing I've ever created is Thought Chamber.
Yeah, and is there any particular reason as to why that was your favourite project, or was it just because it was like this sensory overload that...
Yeah, it was sort of like a sensory overload, but it was also like, it was sort of the first time I had gone back and forth between the audio and the visual processes. Like usually with my process, it was write the music to its completion and then make a video for it. Whereas this piece, I was really going back and forth between like audio and visual and then sort of shaping each going forward. Like it was quite a long step process for that one, but I think it really paid off. It's really cool.
Yeah. And how do you make... Because I've dabbled a little bit in audio visual, just because it's what my creative arts degree has led me to do. But yeah, what software and stuff? What's the process in
for
making?
Video, I use Adobe Premiere Elements.
Okay.
Yeah, which I've sort of had limited experience with making videos when I was younger, so I already kind of knew how to edit video, but I didn't know how to do like heaps of the layering and opacity setting kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But because of my sort of extended experience in the digital creative environment with Ableton, I was sort of able to just sort of just attack it in the same way that I do music, where I just kind of, I think this can be said for nearly all creative arts, you just do things, see what the result is, and then move forward.
Yeah.
Like as long as you do something.
Yeah, just generating content. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
And are you based in Wollongong or do you live outside of Wollongong?
I live in like Fairy Meadow.
Oh, okay, so you're local.
Yeah.
Has that been for a long time or?
I've sort of been moving around a little bit lately. I've lived in North Wollongong, right near the train station, up until maybe like a year ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite that long. But then moved to Corrimal for a little bit, and then moved to Fairy Meadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So generally, you've been within the Illawarra region for most of your life.
Well, yeah, I've been here for about 5 or 6 years, since like 2013. Kind of a little bit on and off, but mostly here. But I grew up just down the coast from here, down near Narra.
Okay, yeah.
Not in Narra.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Not in, yeah, okay.
No.
And since you've been here, do you feel like you've established a connection with the Wollongong creative community?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, yeah, definitely. I kind of would actually consider myself a part of the creative community up here, which is really nice. Um, I think Narra does have kind of like a scene down there. I know Bundanon has its own thing going on.
Yeah.
I was down there on the weekend actually.
It's nice down there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would consider myself part of the community up here though.
Yeah. And in what ways has that been forged over the last few years of you being here? Is that just, making art and establishing networks between people and...
Yeah, mostly. It was sort of before I was making like real techno orientated stuff. I was just sort of doing electronica. I got involved with a creative group called Oh Boy, which was mostly like a group of friends of mine and then a couple of other people that I hadn't met before. Yeah, we did a couple of shows at a place called Moving Mountains, which was like sort of like a DIY gallery right in the middle of Crown Mall,
Yeah.
which was awesome. That was so cool back then. We did a show there where we were all exhibiting. I had some audio-visual installations on some screens, like in like the change rooms there, which was mad. Like people would go into the change rooms, close the door, put the headphones on, just sort of experience the thing that I'd created, which was mad.
That's cool.
It was awesome. It was really good. And then we did a show at Rad Bar, which I'm really grateful for. I'm really pleased to have done a show at Rad Bar. Rad Bar's like such an iconic venue. It's a real shame that that's getting knocked down.
It's not...
It's no good. It
No.
sucks. But we'll continue to evolve, hopefully.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. But, so that's really, really awesome because I've also been to a lot of the venues that you've discussed. And funny that you mention the change room work that you've done because there's an exhibit on in Sydney at the moment where they're putting screens up in the back of public toilets. And, very similar kind of idea or concept. But over the last 6 years or however long you've been here, do you feel Wollongong has evolved or developed in terms of the arts community, or what changes have you noticed?
I wasn't really too much of a part of the arts community until like 2017 or so.
Okay.
But Wollongong's definitely changed. It's certainly gotten a lot bigger. Seems to be so many cranes everywhere in Wollongong now.
Tell me about it. Everywhere, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's largely the same to me. Apparently it changed heaps, like, from, like, sort of the point in time. Like, I have mates that grew up here and they say it's just changed so dramatically, for better or for worse. I guess everywhere changes, but Wollongong's a pretty cool place. Like, it's right on the ocean. It's, like, got to be one of the better cities in one of the better countries in the whole world, so... It's
definitely a nice location. But a common theme I've kind of explored, like interviewing different people, is just the lack of infrastructure or the lack of opportunity that kind of circles around Wollongong. Especially in my practice, which is more performance-based, there's a couple of venues around where you could explore stuff, but most of the opportunities are based up in Sydney. Do you feel that resonates in your practice, or do you think...
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah?
I think if they're, like... You always have to sort of gauge where you are creatively and then see where you can kind of fit. And if that is nowhere, then you kind of have to create those opportunities for yourself. Put on, like, events for yourself or whatever it is. But I do kind of feel like I don't really fit in with the electronic music community here too much. I don't really want that to be the case. I love electronic music. I think it's like electronic music is like, there's like something deeply profound about it, which hasn't really been explored to its full extent, nearly. I read this, sorry, this is getting off topic, but I read this book called The Art of Noises by this guy, his name is Luigi Russolo. He wrote it in 1913, and this was like before any sort of digital art forms or anything like that, but he kind of noticed that these new noises were coming from the newer machinery that was happening, these repetitive noises.
Yeah.
Noises that people had never ever heard before, noises that weren't out in nature, but they were like created by mankind or humans. And he kind of envisioned this point in the future where humans would kind of get this like grip over the medium of sound, where you could literally create any, like the phrase is an infinite variety of noise sounds.
That's cool.
And that's like a reality now.
Yeah.
Like we actually have that with digital music. Like you can literally create, there's no limit to how like diverse and complex you can actually get your sound. So yeah, I don't know. I think electronic music is just like, there's something deeply profound about it which hasn't really been explored to its full extent yet, but that's sort of where I want to go in the future with my practice, is kind of exploring that.
Yep. And where do you think digital music is kind of headed towards as a whole? Do you think it is more centered towards going into this interactive VR type of situation, or do you think it's somewhere else?
Maybe. I think there'll be elements of that for sure. Yep. I had this idea for an art piece a little while ago, about a year or so ago. I wanted to do it at the Wollongong Art Gallery, and the thing would be you put like a headset on, like a VR headset, walk out into a space, and there would be sensors in the room that would know where you were, and you'd be able to move through a digitally created composition as you saw fit. So different parts of the room the music would be different, and then you could kind of control that. So I kind of think something like that will kind of likely be in some way in the future. But whether that is in nightclubs or not, I really couldn't tell you. I think nightclubs are going to get really weird. But
they already are.
Yeah, they're really strange environments. I'm not really a big fan of it because of that. Like, I just really like partying outdoors nowadays. I like being around trees and stuff. So yeah,
that's sick. And what kind of motivates you to create this type of art? Because it's definitely something that I'm not knowledged on that much. But yeah, what motivated you to kind of go down this area that's been lesser explored?
I think just the fact that it's possible to go down into those avenues now. Like, people from even 10 years ago wouldn't have been able to like really, or maybe 20 years ago wouldn't have been able to do any of the sort of stuff we're doing now. Like, we have these crazy tools basically completely accessible to us if you know how to download them and whatever.
Yeah.
Like some virtual instruments you can get now are like so lifelike, it's crazy. Like, it's staggering how like lifelike just virtual instruments are now. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool, but what was your question, sorry? Just like what motivates you. What motivates me? Yeah. Yeah, just the possibility of it. Hey, like, just like the idea that it's possible. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely justified. It's almost like our responsibility as humans to sort of explore what the universe is capable of. For sure. Yeah. Like, how complex can this thing get? Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And why, out of all of the institutions that you could go to that kind of are more specialised in terms of, you know, audio production and especially in my instance, there are a lot of institutions that are more well suited for performance than UOW, for example.
So yeah, why UOW out of everywhere else in Australia that you could potentially have gone to?
Wollongong's a really, really beautiful place.
And that's just the location.
Largely, yeah. I did actually go to some music institutions. I went to the Australian Institute of Music. I studied composition there, and then I studied audio engineering, which I didn't finish either of those degrees, but yeah, it was interesting. It was cool, but like I wouldn't do it again. The hex debt was outrageous.
Can you hex over there? At
In
the Australian Institute of Music?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't think you should be able to. It's
It's
outrageous how much they charge, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how would you compare somewhere like that to here, for example, in terms of just like the structure of the university?
I would definitely recommend here over there. Because the classes are one thing, but your environment is like much bigger than that. Sydney is not like, I don't want to say it's not a pleasant place, but it's not really like an ideal place to go when you turn 18 and then want to make an impact on the world. For one, it's not a really creative focused city. It's largely business.
Yeah, for
Melbourne's much more creative, but yeah, I don't know. Wollongong's just sort of where I'm at now, and I don't really plan on moving for a while. It's pretty nice here.
Yeah, it is nice.
Very good.
And being an artist in such a competitive industry, how does that make you feel?
Living here?
Oh, just in general, because it's just such an oversaturated environment of people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing it. That's sort of one of the reasons I kind of got interested in the visual element to my tracks was, I just kind of wanted to be out there and a bit different.
Yeah.
My music kind of developed much more complexly after I got into that, which was a good benefit of that. But I think just being different, but then also not like being too focused on making it is a really good like way to be happy in your life.
Yeah.
Just focus on being really good at what you're doing.
Yeah. That's a great piece of advice. And so when you sit down to produce a piece of work, what inspires you, or what piece of inspiration do you take away that influences your artistic style? Are there certain things, like I've noticed that a lot of environmental stuff, like it's centered around nature and like all that kind of groovy stuff. But yeah, do you have any specific sources of inspiration that influence your work?
For music, it's largely just other artists, other people doing electronic music and non-electronic music. I really, really like Deadmau5.
Yep.
He's probably my favourite modern composer, nearly. It's definitely up there. I really like the way he writes chords. I definitely take a lot of inspiration from that element of his work. But there's heaps of really amazing producers out there, which I just sort of try to take influence from as much as I can, but still maintain my own original take on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I suppose, do you have anything coming up, any projects coming up that you would like to plug or talk about?
I feel like I do. I just can't remember. I have the worst memory. Hey, I absolutely rely on my calendar.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I do have something. I can't remember what it is. Oh, actually, I am. I'm showing at Verb Syndicate next month with a bunch of other artists. We're doing like a group show there. Not really sure what I'm doing for that yet, but I'll figure it out.
You got a month.
Yeah.
You got plenty of time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Is it just more music based, or?
That one will be a painting. I'm not really sure
Oh, cool.
what I'll do for that yet, but I'll figure it out.
Yep.
But other than that, I have heaps of new music coming out soon. I'm just sort of finding labels to put those out on at the moment, and then working out promo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The music industry is like heaps cooked. Hey? It's like so much about like planning and strategy, and which isn't a bad thing. It's cool, but
it's a lot of brain power.
it's really hard to
Yeah.
make it as a solo artist.
Yeah.
or even have any sort of impact. Yeah, but you know, you can do it. But so
it's
people
just a
should
long
try.
road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all I really have to ask for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss, or anything else that you want to talk about?
Not really off the top of my head.
No? That's all right. Well, thanks for coming on once again.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And this has been an episode of Soundcheck.